Hello and good morning, everybody. Welcome to the art studio. It is the third week of April, and we're going to talk about all the things that are happening in your April classes. So if you're catching this either live or in the replay and you've got kids in drawing classes, multimedia classes, sewing classes, fundamentals classes, this is where you can find out what we're going on this week, what's been going on. I'm going to show you some in-progress stuff, and then what's happening this week and all the things. So if you're catching the replay, you can check out the timestamps that are in the description. We don't have timestamps if you're catching the live because who knows what we'll chat about. Let's we get to the end of all of the class updates, I will go through just a couple notes of housekeeping, and then I'll let you get on with your week. All right. So let's start with sewing. We never start with sewing. Let's start with sewing. So if you remember, right, sewing classes are making these stuffed bees, bumblebees for springtime. It is a project that we've done in the past, but we've never done it as a 4-part lesson. We've always done it in our single session classes, which is fine. That's been our life in the last couple of years. But since we're back to making our classes a monthly class, this year we got to take that bee project and really spend a lot more time with it instead of just hurrying it along. So I've got some examples here. They had to make their own striped fabric. Oh, this is so soft too. I should tell you, this is super, super soft. They had to cut out their stripes. We had to applique them on. They had to design their faces because, we just don't do that for them. Cut out what they wanted. Those are hand sewn on. So I've actually got it stitched on with embroidery floss. And then, of course, the back as well. So the pieces are just about ready to all get put together. These are the wings. So they will this week be turning them right sides together, stitching around with the machine, flipping it, stuffing it, and then hand stitching it closed with a blind. Most of our kids are to the point that they can use a blind stitch to stitch it closed. Some of them will still use a whip stitch. Just depends on the artist, okay? So that's what's coming in the week 3. I would bet most of them are going to get it sewn around today. Tomorrow, I guess, is when class meets. But they won't get all the finishing details done until week 4. We'll see. Depends on how fast they are with the machines. But that is the progress for sewing class. Let's talk about, I got to unbury some things. I have a stack full of fun things over here. Let's do drawing. Because again, drawing is never at the beginning of my videos either. We usually dive right into multimedia, which is what most of my stack is. If you'll remember right, our drawing classes started the semester doing just a review of the basics, contour, value type things, and then they moved into figure and portraiture. So we portraiture the month of February, figure the month of March, and now we kind of got some fun things happening. We've been doing animals. We did cats and dogs the first week. We did horses and unicorns and alicorns last week, and I brought some examples from our Drawing 102 class here in Liberty. The cool thing about going from portrait and figure into animals is there's actually a lot of tie-in. So right when we did all the figure stuff, especially, I showed you like some gesture drawings they did, some structure drawings, which is essentially like a stick figure that then you flesh out with the muscles and skin and clothing on an armature. We also taught like the bubble method, where you actually draw a person entirely using circles. And our animal drawings tend to be, you can use that same technique. And so they've been working with trying to break down our horses into different shapes as well. You can see this is a printed like Google image, and our artist has taken and just drawn right on the reference photo to help break down those shapes, the relationships between the shapes, the scale of the shapes, because then that helps them to render it on another sheet of paper. So I thought I'd show you some of their work. Horses are really hard. And as a person who drew horses growing up constantly, I love them. Not only do they have to get your shape, your relationship to shape, the scale, the everything, but they also have to get all of the shadows, right? Because as the planes of the animal changes, the body changes similar to a human body. There are shadows and highlights within there. So this is our Drawing 102 class, and I think that they have done an amazing job. There's parts of a horse that are bonier and parts that are more muscular and parts that are soft and fleshy. So like getting those different angles represented in a animal body is really tricky. But if you can do this, you could do lions and giraffes and even birds, right? Because we've still got kind of that structure. So this week, so that was last week, was horses. This week, those drawing classes, 101 and 102, are going to be doing reptiles. So we move away from kind of our furry creatures and into scaly creatures. So they're going to do dragons, lizards, and snakes. And then that'll be a good tie-in to, I forget what we're doing the next month. Hang on, I'll tell you. Oh, birds. Week 4 is birds. I knew there were birds in there somewhere. And then we move into nature next month. So that is our drawing classes. I'm going to make sure I don't lose my art. Put it all in piles. It all has to go back into the right class cubby. Otherwise, people get real confused around here. Okay. My 102 comic and anime classes, they don't follow the same track as the 101s and the 102 advanced realistic. Those two kind of run parallel. They run similar curriculums, obviously just at a higher or lower level. My 102 classes have been building for the whole year in making their own comic book. So this month of April has been really drilling down into some details, but we're getting ready to get back big. So they drilled down into hands, they drilled down into feet last week. This week, they're drilling down again into kind of some occasion clothes, like some specialty items that maybe they want to use in their book. And then come May is when they will actually get a blank comic book, and we'll start fleshing that out for the whole month of May. So hopefully between all of the notes and drafts and lessons that they've had for the past 9 months, we'll be leading up to May's curriculum. That's our goal. All right, I've got bunches of stuff for multimedia. It is Fiber Arts Month in the art studio, and we've got weaving going on, we've got sewing going on, and we've got needle felting going on. So we're just going to kind of go through that. I grabbed all of these out of one of our K first cubbies, I think. I'm not real sure. Could be second and third. And you can see they have been working so hard on learning this kind of weaving over, under, or dolphin stitch. We've talked about they had to learn how to thread a needle. They had to learn how to tie a knot. They had to learn, there's lots of things that goes along with this. You can see they've decorated, the wood. We've made a hanger for it. This week, they're going to continue to weave more things in it. They may weave things off the side. They may weave vertically. They also, this week, will get access to, this person's kind of an overachiever. Man, they have a lot going on in there. Like, who is that? Most of them look like this. Most of them don't have quite the filled out nature in it. This is a little bit more common to where everyone is in the project. Obviously, artists work at different speeds. I have some that work super duper fast and some that take a little bit longer. They had to make a lot of choices in terms of, which fibers will they use? Will they use the fuzzy one? Are they going to go all the way to the end? Are they going to let it dangle in the front? I don't know. Maybe that's the back. I don't know. I guess that person will decide, right? This week, they'll get access to even more things. So they'll get to use, we've got buttons and we've got more beads. We've got a few more weaving elements that they can add into their tapestry as they start to fill it all up. It's okay if the burlap shows through. We kind of like that, but we'd like a lot of it to be filled. So it really does begin to look like a tapestry. And I love all of the little furry things that are hanging off the side, the ribbons and the things that are hanging off the side, because I think that really adds to it. And it helps us so we don't have to have knots going on. If this is a good example, so for one of our artists that, doesn't want it hanging off the edge, she's trimmed hers. She has trimmed hers here. So I think this is actually, I don't know which one's the front, but it's all trimmed off. We'll probably take a dab of hot glue and just tack that right down so that it doesn't get accidentally pulled out. So they've got 2 more weeks to flesh out their tapestry, and it's been a very zen class. And I shouldn't say that. For some kids, it's very zen, and once they learn the needle threading, it becomes more zen. Initially, there are some tears, and a little bit of unsewing and unweaving that has to happen. But once they get going on it and they get the knack for it, it is a very zen process. So I hope they're having fun with it. I'm excited to see what their tapestries will look like. I want to show you what that's K1 and second, third are both doing those. So my 4th and 5th graders are sewing. And I just grabbed 3 random bags out of the closet because this is how we keep everybody's stuff together. I showed you in week 1 that they had to make their little design, right? After they made their design, they had to figure out how that design then becomes a pattern, right? So, and I love this pattern that there's like ears times 2, arms times 2, right? They had to figure out what their sewing pattern was going to be, and then they had to start cutting out their pieces. So this person has their work cut out for them because that's a lot of pieces. So last week was just all about cutting and planning. This week they will begin their sewing. I want to show you this one. Oh, it's an avocado. I adore the fact that at our studio, our kids get to take an idea that's in their brain and bring it to life, right? So it's not, okay, we're all making avocados. Here's your template, cut out your, and then just execute my vision. I want your vision in your brain and what you think is cool, because I don't get it anyway, because I'm old. And then I want you to make it happen, because that's the coolest part of being an artist. So we do a lot of drafting. We do a lot of brainstorming here in the studio. We want the kids to spend a lot of time in their own head fleshing out an idea and then put it in paper, because then that helps communicate to us what your vision is so that we can help you to realize it. So that's a lot of what's been happening here in the studio for the 4th and 5th graders. This week they begin their sewing. So they'll start putting things together and stitching. They are hand sewing. So this is not machine sewing. It's not the same as the bumblebees. They are hand sewing, needle and thread, different than what our little ones are doing, our K1 second thirds, because they're using large needles with big eyes, because otherwise you can't get ribbon through it anyway. These guys are using smaller needles. They're using sharp needles, and they're actually stitching this together. So they'll be learning a running stitch and a whip stitch. Actually, I think they already had a practice run on it in week 1, but they'll probably get a review this week since it's been 2 weeks, and then they'll start sewing it together. The good news is most of our 4th and 5th graders that have been with us have done at least one sewing project with us, because 2 years ago we did emoji pillows, and so most of them have been with us, and so we have a lot of people that at least have some experience with it. Now let's talk about those middle school, high schoolers, because they're the ones that get to test out this new project. And I wanted to show you, if you remember right, and I didn't bring the instructor's example, but they're making these wispy jellyfish art, and we've got our hoops prepped from week 1, and we've started working through the jellyfish. So this is our wispy wool roving that they have set on there. You can see it's kind of dimensional, but they've been using their felting needles to push it into the netting and tangle up all of those fibers so that it stays. This one's a good one. This one's very well felted. So the more that you stab it, is what it is. You just take this needle that has little barbs on it. It's called a felting needle. We put a sponge underneath it so that they're not hitting the table, and they just stab over and over and over again. And they use different colors of wool roving. I think it looks like cotton candy. You can see some parts of it might be more opaque. The directions that we lay the fibers adds to like almost the contour of what we're making. You can see the different layers that are in there. I think the jellyfish is a really fun subject for this, because it does have that kind of ethereal, flowing. Let's see that. Isn't that cool? Look at all those lines and like the twist that had to happen, right? So you can roll the fibers between your fingers and set them in. They also will work on getting like maybe yarn, or we've got some different fibers. This is a lot of like layers and a lot of just this over and over and over and again. It's not a quick process. Doing it really fast doesn't really make it go faster. And it has to be very intentional. So they will continue to build this, and then they'll add in like their tentacles and their outlines. So, I mean, it just continues to take shape. It's almost collage-like or sculpture-like. It has some elements of almost painting in it. So I'm excited to see what they will continue to make. Obviously, there's a ton more than just these three. They were the three on the top, so I just grabbed them. So, all right, so that is all of our multimedia classes for Fiber Months. Like I said, it is week 3, so they'll have all of this week and all of next week to finish their projects. Everybody is on track to finish. I would say the sewing people are probably the only kind of wild card because you never know who's going to have a really rough class this time, and like they sew it, but then they have to unsew it, and that really sets you behind. So if your kid comes home and they're frustrated about any of the projects really, but especially my sewing crew, if they come home frustrated because they didn't get as far as they needed to, or as far as they thought they needed to, or as far as they wanted to, just know they're always welcome to make a reservation and come in on a Wednesday night just for some additional time. So even if you don't miss class and you just feel like you need a little bit more time in the studio, that is always an option. Just make a reservation so that we know that you're coming. We can have your project out and ready for you. Because there's nothing worse than having to dig into the closet for it. It's not a quick process sometimes for us to find things. We like to have it already out and ready for you when you're coming in, okay? For my fundamentals classes, and those are my little preschoolers that come, they are in their last week of April classes. And the reason they're in their last week is they only meet 3 times a month. So we met the first week, we met the second week, and now this is our last week. It's our 3rd week of our April curriculum. They are reading Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, and we're making letter art and tree art, and super fun. Yeah. And then next week we will be off, and we'll remind you, and we'll send emails, and the video that I make next week will tell you not to come. So come this week, don't come next week. That's how that happens. And then we start our May classes. May begins on Monday, May 2nd. It is our last month of classes for the year. Well, for the school year, right? So we finish in May. So we'll start on May 2nd. We'll wrap up on May 27th. All of our classes are done, and we won't see you guys until September unless you come for art camps. Okay. May classes for, I think we said for like the drawing kiddos, my 102 comic and anime are going to be doing comic books. My 101 and 102 realistic are going to be working with a lot of outdoorsy stuff. So if the weather's nice, we'll try to go out and do stuff from observation outside. If not, we'll bring things in. It's fun with the weather being nice and it being lighter later if we can get outside and draw what we see outside. So they'll try to draw buildings from observation, trees from observation, and we'll bring in different botanicals. So that's what's going on for them. And then for my multimedia classes, you guys in the month of May are doing metals. I had to think about that. It's metals month. So always a fun one. Lots of wire sculpture. Trying to think. My older kids are going to try something new. My middle schools and high schoolers. We're going to try some alcohol inks on copper. So I got some copper jewelry blanks, and we're going to do alcohol inks and then some resin work. So I think that'll be a really fun project. I'm excited to see what they will make from that. My younger ones, I think 4th and 5th is doing bugs, which is the giant bug sculptures, which we've done in the past and is always a win. So that one's a good one. And then I really can't remember the younger ones are doing tooling. K1, 2nd, 3rd, you guys are doing metal tooling in a mobile, which usually when we do tooling, so this is a new format for us. Usually when we do tooling, it's a single project. It's usually like 5x7 or 8x10. Tooling is when you're embossing and debossing metal. So we buy metal sheets, and they use an embossing tool and a debossing tool to raise parts of the metal and depress parts of the metal to make the picture. We're going to do the same thing, except we're going to do it on a smaller, almost like medallion type size scale, and they will do multiples of them, and then they will be hooked together using wire and beads in a mobile. So that'll be K1 and 2nd, 3rd to wrap up our year. So metal art comes in May, and then my younger kiddos, my preschoolers they read some of our favorite books for the month. I can't remember 3 of them, but I can remember 2. We read Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, and we make bobblehead pigeons. Super cute. Sarah and I were just giggling about that on Friday. And then we make we read Sylvester and the Magic Pebble, and we make magic rocks using rocks that we heat up in the oven and melt crayons and glitter on them. Some fun stuff coming in the month of May, just to wrap up our year. Okay. If you have questions about May classes, just let me know. As a reminder, if you're in classes and you're like, we're not going to be able to do May for whatever reason, okay, either you're, headed out for summer vacation really early or spring sports are conflicting with it. For whatever reason, if May isn't going to happen, please let us know sooner the better so that I can pull somebody from the wait list since most of our classes are full. Okay. The last couple of notes I'll say, we'll kind of backtrack a little bit. This coming Sunday is our student art show. So if you are planning on entering some artwork into the show, it is completely optional, but we do need that by end of day Friday. Okay. And I say that, but just know that like Platwood Studio, the staff is usually there, but we're not really open on Fridays. So if you're out at if you're like a Platwood student and you're thinking you're going to drop off your art at 4:00 on Friday, just so you know, the doors will probably be locked. The staff is usually there. The team is usually there in the mornings because we have a staff meeting and they teach online and then they do cleaning and party prep and that kind of stuff. So make arrangements with your instructors if you're planning on coming on Friday to drop off artwork. Here in Liberty, we have class on Friday morning in person. And then we're usually here cleaning. I have a private event Friday night here at the studio. So the doors will be open and you can come in and drop it off, but don't expect to be able to chat with me because I'll be running the private event. Okay. You could just make sure to drop it off before Friday and then it's not a problem. Okay. Saturday, the studios are open, but they're doing private parties. And so again, if you want to bring it in and just drop it off, that's great, but don't expect to chat with anybody because we'll be running the birthday parties. Okay. Or better yet, just bring it to class with you this week and then you don't have to worry about it. But the art show is on Sunday. We would love to see you. The certificates are already printed. They haven't been filled out yet, but they're all printed. Our ribbons are in. We do give awards and awards, certificates and ribbons to first, second, and third place for each age group. Those are picked by the instructor just to recognize some really amazing art. Everyone who displays art in the show is already awesome because it's a tough thing to do to put your art on display for the world to see. And we want to make sure that all our artists know how much we appreciate them and how brave they are to do that. So there will be a little bit of an awards presentation. We'll talk about that. Make sure to recognize all our artists, give them a great big hand, and then we'll give out ribbons and certificates for a select few. So that'll be happening. I believe it's at 6:30-ish at both of the studios. The open house style show runs from 6 to 8. So you just come and go. That's it. Other notes. Camps, summer camps. Really, the only thing left in July is Underwater Adventure. And those ones, I assume, will be filled up before the end of the month. July is always the first month of camps to go. So if you're interested in camp, that's the last option is Underwater Adventure. June and April, August still have plenty of room in them. I would think that June camps, that they should be filling up pretty soon. We will close registration at some point. So if they don't fill, probably, let's see, when do I order supplies? Probably like 2 weeks or 3 weeks before every camp, we will close the registration. So if for some reason the camps aren't full, I'll go ahead and close the registration so that I can get supplies ordered. So just be aware of that. Don't wait for too long. You don't want to order like a ton of supplies and then only have 10 kids show up. Probably won't happen, but just so you know. And then the last thing I'll say, we've had some questions about fall classes, and those ones are the schedule so that you can plan your fall. The class schedule is usually finalized by July 4th weekend. Usually like the long holiday weekend is usually, I use that time to do that stuff. So you'll see like the website updated with all the fall class information around July 4th. You'll see the schedule so that you can start planning out your fall in terms of, which class you're going to be interested in or it's going to fit with your schedule for both of the studios. And then registration for fall starts on on August 1st at 9 a.m. is when registration will open. The classes for fall begin after Labor Day, the Tuesday after Labor Day, except for the Monday night classes. And there's a logistical reason why. We want to make sure that our Monday classes, our Monday night classes, get 4 class times, and we don't want to meet on Labor Day. So because of that, the Monday classes start Monday, August 29th. Everybody else starts after Labor Day. Okay. It's kind of like a nice soft opening for us for fall. It's like we do 1 day of classes and then we just take a week off. So that's what's coming up for fall. If you have questions about that, you can holler at me. I did have one last note, and that was birthdays. If you are planning a summer birthday here in the studio, please don't wait too long to book. We have limited times available for summer because we take vacation too. And we're here, all week long doing camps and classes and things like that. So we limit our birthday parties. So just be aware of that and book early. Cool. All right, guys, that's everything I have for you. If you have questions, you know where to find me in the studio. And I will look forward to seeing everybody here for the 3rd week of August. Oh my gosh, drink more coffee. 3rd week of April. And I'll chat with you guys again next week.